Hello YouTube, this is Highbowman here with my first Prime Terrorcon review, and we're starting things off with the leader, Hun-Gurrr. As you can see here, he is a twin-headed dragon, which actually carries over very well from his G1 form. All of the Predacons that were designed for Transformers Prime were designed to be dragons of some kind, so when they took the G1 Terrorcon characters and made them Predacons, they had to work in some element of being a dragon to each one of their monster alt modes. But given that Hun-Gurrr was already a two-headed dragon / lizard, this worked really well. They just updated him a little bit, made him more T-Rex-like than the quadruped he was in G1. So you can see here, he is indeed rocking the T-Rex look with his 2 legs and 2 T-Rex arms here, and his 2 heads up here. We start up here because these are the main detail of any two-headed dragon. The necks have this really cool effect to them where the top here, which becomes the front of Hun-Gurr's leg in robot mode, the top of this is bulged upwards thanks to some armor plating to look not only like dragon scales but also to give his necks a semblance of curvature when really they are just straight pieces, as you can see along the bottom here. So from a distance, it actually does look a little bit more natural, like his necks are a little bit curved, like an actual spine would be. I'm getting into the details of the head specifically. He does have yellow eyes painted in on all 4 of his eye sockets. And that's a really nice color to contrast with the red. You can see his teeth are nicely molded in here, as well as a hole to hold his saw weapon in his mouth like this. In terms of posability, you have ball joints here at the base of each neck, as well as a hinge joint here. This is 4-foot transformation, which is why they fold up all the way like this. But there's enough downward tilt and sort of straight on tilt that you can actually get some good poses out of both of his heads. One thing that I always like with two-headed animals or multi-headed animals of any type is the idea that each head either has its own personality or its own instincts. So it's really cool to be able to have one head doing its own thing and the second head doing its own thing. So you've got, let's pretend he's on the hunt looking for somebody. He can have one head down here sniffing in a hole, this one's looking off into the distance, and then the inevitable, the good guys are trying to trick him, so they run up at him and split, and his 2 heads try to chase them, and he does that. There's a lot of fun little setups you can think of for this. One of those is the his stance. If you look at his legs here, he's got nice wide feet. It's true that these this front part of his claw here can tilt up and down on a hinge, but if you look at it when it's tilted flat against his heel, it's a really nice, long, wide foot for him to stand on. And with his wide hips, he can get a good stance with his feet down, even if you kind of screw up, keeping his legs in line. And that works really well because you can go for multiple stances. If you want him completely vertical, like this, you can get that. He can use his tail to balance a little bit, and the curvature of his neck allows him to look forward. If you want him somewhere in between, like I had him originally, you can do that. And if you want to go the full horizontal dinosaur, you have your choices of horizontal with the necks up, or horizontal at a sprint with his necks straight out in front of him. These feet, beyond just having this little ankle pivot, also have a ball joint here, and an outwards thigh swivel, which is also a transformation joint. This one isn't as helpful as the ball jointed hips, just because splaying his feet apart means that his nice wide standing base gets even wider and it can't hold him up. So generally it's a good idea to keep these pointed forwards so he can actually balance. His T-Rex arms here, as you have seen, are on just one joint. They are clipped in through here, and it's one piece that moves up and down, but they move up and down pretty much to the highest point you can get with the necks being all the way up, and then for transformation they fold up completely flush, so there's a nice range to all of his beast mode joints. As I showed you before, he can hold his saw/gun in his mouth. I do like these melee weapons in any Terrorcon mouth to be in the melee weapon configuration, because I think it makes the most sense that he'd be, running along and trying to gash people with this. And it can plug onto other parts of his body, although it doesn't look very good. He has some ports on his leg here, which just kind of have it hanging off. But the cool part of this guy comes in transformation. Before we get to transforming these guys, I want to do a quick side-by-side comparison of new Prime Hun-Gurrr with G1 Hun-Gurrr. And first thing, yes, they are completely different sizes. The new Terrorcons were all made for the Cyberverse size class, whereas old Hun-Gurrr is the commander of a Scramble City Combiner team. He is much bigger. The primary difference, though, is what I pointed out earlier on in the video, that G1 Hun-Gurrr is a quadruped, whereas in the update of him, they made him more of a T-Rex-styled lizard/dragon. You can see here the colors are also different. The new Hun-Gurrr is much more balanced out in terms of white versus other colors, whereas G1 Hun-Gurrr is mostly white with some gray and very little in the way of other colors besides that. There's a little bit of purple on his back here, and then his head in robot mode is purple, so that also balances out. Also, they updated the robot that looks like kind of an animal to more of the techno-organic styled beast modes that we've had since really Beast Wars and Beast Machines. So if you look at this guy's necks and head, you can see he's got visor eyes on both of his heads that actually sort of look like cockpit windows, and very basic head detailing. A few teeth, maybe some nostrils up here, a few scales down the back, and that's it. So he's got some heads, some legs, boom. Robotic animal mode. Whereas new Hun-Gurrr is designed to have more scales, more defined chunks of muscle and toes and fingers and all that. He's got the teeth molded in, he's got head crests, everything to make him look, I guess, more authentic as a dragon, but also more organic than a G1 styled dragon mode would. Transformation on these guys is pretty much identical in terms of which things happen where on their bodies. They're both going to do a stand up like this. Necks and heads become legs and feet. Back legs become arms. Front arms or legs sling up the back. And the head's going to come out from underneath the tail. We'll start with new Hun-Gurrr and move to old Hun-Gurrr. What I'm going to do just for this part of the video is set out some sheets of paper here to stand him up on. This guy's footprint gets a lot tinier in robot mode, so it's going to be helpful to have a flat surface here. Let's get started. So, stand him up, flip up his heads to become his feet, come around to the arms, straighten them out. This is where that thigh swivel joint comes in. Take these claws, sling them up the sides, come around the back. These front, I guess, dinosaur arms, I really don't know what else to call them. They're not legs, they're not really arms, but these sling up the back, and you take his tail and fold it down, revealing his head underneath. So we're going to set him off to the side. Hopefully this new setup allows him to stand up more easily, which it does. Alright, let me readjust. Okay. And then old Hun-Gurrr will be on this other sheet of paper. Exactly the same thing, just with, surprisingly, a few more joints. It's interesting to see a G1 character get updated to have a new toy with modern engineering, ball joints and things like that, and actually have fewer joints than a G1 toy. That's a rare thing. Although if you watch my video review of Hun-Gurrr, this G1 Hun-Gurrr, you'll know that all the joints in his neck make him one of the most jointed, if not the most jointed, G1 transformer. That doesn't mean, though, that they are equally posable. As you noticed, this guy has a lot more stances he can pull off. This guy's dragon mode is really just stand there and have my necks point in different directions, which, as I demonstrated, this guy can pull off as well with just two ball joints. Again, the only real difference from this guy's transformation to the new one is that his head turns around so it can fit underneath his tail, and that these arms or front legs just fold away instead of folding up. So, now we see the size difference. One of them is in shot, and the other one is not. And being a straight-limbed G1 transformer, there's not much to do in terms of balancing his stance. So let's see what we can't do here. I might have to hunch him forward a bit. There we go. Okay, so quick shot of... Okay, right after that last shot I just cut away from, the big guy fell over, knocking this guy over off the frame, and it was just a mess. So cut, we're back here, nice up close and personal, and let's get into some details and posability with Hun-Gurrr in robot mode. So you can see here the main new detail that we have is his head, which once we focus you can see he's got sort of two horns here and a crest in the middle, as well as a silver visor, and he does have a mouth. It's unpainted, so it might be hard to see his little grimace in there. He's sort of cackling to himself, which is appropriate of a Terrorcon. You can see the Prime Terrorcon logo right here. Focus, there we go. You can see yellow in his chest, some red here. Coming down to his legs, they are again curved out a little bit in the front, which also helps make him look big. One of the things that was worrisome about seeing all of the Prime Terrorcons being in the Cyberverse Legion, the Legion scale, instead of some of them like him being in the Commander class scale, was that he might have been the same size as the Limb bots. And he technically is, but there are just certain things about him, like the width of his shoulders up here, the distance between his hips, I guess, down here, that help him seem a little bit bigger, and it works for him being the torso of Abominus, which is a good thing. Things like his legs sort of bulging outwards here, even though, again, they're straight. It's just the way these scales are molded. Posability-wise, he has pretty much everything from Beast Mode here. He's got ball-jointed hips now, which have forward, backwards, outwards, a little bit of wiggle in and out. His feet, unfortunately, the heads on the hinges here don't really do that much. You can try to sort of tilt one forward and one backwards, but it doesn't really work. You really just want to leave these flat if you're going to have him standing up. He's got ball-jointed shoulders, which unfortunately this is as far up as they can go, but they rotate forward and backwards, and his arms can swivel on this transformation joint only forward and backwards, which is fine. And then his claws can also flip out if you want to give him some additional melee weapons. Now, that being said, he does come with an accessory. The saw, which really didn't do all that much in Beast Mode, comes back here. He can hold it like a gun in at least 2 or 3 different ways, depending on which pegs you wanted to hold it with. I find that it's good to angle this out a little bit in his hand, because otherwise, the way his arm is curved, he can't hold it straight out like this, just sticking in his hand the way you'd want. But if you angle it out a little bit, then he can hold it forward and it looks good. And because of the way his arms can tilt, he can get some good range out of this. And if you want him to hold it more like a saw, you just pop this out, use the rear peg, and now he has more of a bladed weapon in his hand, which is cool. I really like that all of the Cyberverse weapons can be used both as melee weapons and as guns. It makes it a lot more dynamic when these guys have their accessories. So that is pretty much it for Hun-Gurrr here. We'll get back to him and the other things he can do when we get to the final combination video. But yes, this is the first of multiple Prime Terrorcon reviews. And I thought we'd kick it off appropriately with the leader man himself. So, come on. So this is Hybo Man signing off here with Transformers Prime, let me get this right, Cyberverse Legion class Predacon Terrorcon Hun-Gurrr. And we will be back next time with the second member of the team and the first Terrorcon they released, Sinner Twin, now known as Twin Strike. So again, this is Hybo Man signing off. Thank you for watching.